Yeah, I mean, to get started in the on the podcast proper, I think before, I mean, we all know you as a former Lions footballer, and a successful businessman after. But I suppose something I've always been interested when I speak to athletes is, what is the hardest part about being an athlete that I guess we may not appreciate as, supporters or sports enthusiasts, if you will?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. I think being an athlete, I suppose everyone and anyone can actually play sport, right?
Yeah.
Anyone can actually go and kick a ball or pick up a racket or swim. What makes the athlete different, I think, is the mindset, right? You will reach a point where a lot of people will stop because of either pain or they are not good at something. They can't get to the next level of that sport. 99% of them will stop there. The ones that become good are the ones that keep going, right? They break the barrier and then they become what we call professional athletes. So that fine line is decisions you make in life. Like, is this for me? Of course, you ask, is this for me? Is this what I want? Right? Because then you might reach a point where you have a lot of options. Like maybe you want to pursue a life academically. You want to say, I want to go to the university. I want to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever profession. Then, or you might get distracted to say that this is too much. I got to train every day. I got to dedicate my life. I got to eat well. I can't go out partying and stuff like that. I got to take care of my body. That's a little bit too much for me. I like the finer things in life, so I'm going to take a different route. But those athletes that actually get to the top, and I think a lot of it is not really discussed openly, not enough at least. If you ask top athletes, or at least athletes who turn pro and play for the national teams, what is the thing that makes a difference? Is because the mindset to achieve, the mindset to be successful, I think is the one that is the key difference. I'll give you an example, maybe a story to share so that it make it a bit more real, right? So even in my own life, my brother, who's 2 years older, was much talented than me. He's got a very sweet left foot. He was a footballer. I followed him around playing football. Even when we were playing in our early days, when we played for our village team, our neighborhood team, right? He was always the outstanding player, and he was always picked first. And even as we progressed and we got older, he was always getting picked to different teams, national age group teams, and then eventually playing, I would say, what was Premier League football back then, which was semi-professional. But I was the guy that was always chasing him, right? I'm looking at him going like, I need to do better. He's my brother, right? I got to do better. But I didn't have the necessary skill sets like him. But what I had was the hunger for success, right? I wanted to be very good at what I did, very badly, even though I didn't have the skills. So it's quite ironic in some ways, where you think like, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to reach the top of the game, when you actually didn't have the skills to do it. You didn't have the tools to do it. So I start to realize that, okay, if I don't have the skills, then what else must I do? And looking back now, I mean, and you would probably resonate with this, at 15, 16, 17, we all don't know what we're going to be doing. Like, we all are lost, right? We just do what we want. And hopefully something happens, right? That's what we think about, especially if you're not that academically good in school. Not that I was completely useless in school. It's just that it didn't interest me. Like, things didn't interest me, right? Except for a few topics and subjects that I really like. But I was always into sports, playing hockey, running for school, football, and stuff like that. So I wanted to excel, be really good at something. And football was my first love. Like, I used to grow up watching all the Malaysia Cup heroes and stuff like that and say, if they can do it, okay, what's the difference? Why I can't do it? Like, they're just like me and all that. Okay, maybe they're a little bit skillful. So I paid attention to my strength. My strength was my ability to not give up. And I knew that I always had it. I worked really hard. And that hard work comes from my dad, because I seen my dad, work long hours as a taxi driver. So I picked up those skills from him. I mean, as kids, you only learn from your parents, right? So I picked that up from my dad. And I said, if I really applied myself and I tried as hard as I could, maybe something might happen, right? Maybe something might happen. So that's what I did. So when my brother got to a level, he started to slack. He started to sit at home and not train as hard. And I took that as a motivation to train harder and harder and harder, and using him as my benchmark to say, I got to do better and better and better. And then in a very short space of time, I became a national team player. So coming back to the question of what people really don't know is that ability to work through pain, work through disappointments, humiliation. And my journey hasn't been as straightforward as a lot of people thought it was. Like, you know, when I was playing for one of the teams in my early days, people used to keep telling me, you're a tall guy, you're clumsy, you know, you can't play. You know, so as a young kid, you start to question yourself a lot, right? Especially when you don't have the support system like what a lot of athletes have these days, right? You're just left to yourself. And then if you're not mentally strong, you just take the easy route out. So I suppose I'm very thankful and grateful that I somehow, I don't know how, but I had the presence of mind to say that this is what I wanted. Doesn't matter what the world said about me. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying. So I really worked hard at the game, like really, really worked hard at it. And then I got my break. So I suppose the 99% of the people in this world, whether they reach the heights of business or academics or sports, they give up halfway, right? They don't finish the race, right? Because when life throws some obstacles, challenges, they just put up their hand and say, okay, that's it. You know, let me go somewhere else, because it's painful, it's hard. We all know that. And our human brain is, you know, for years and years and years, millions of years has been trained to preserve energy, of course, not be disappointed, survival and stuff like that. The true champions are the ones that have that breakthrough. The true champions are the ones that keep going. And that's been well documented. If you look at the top athletes in the world, they all had some sort of setback in their life, from Michael Jordan to Cristiano Ronaldo, you name it, right? They all had the journey worth telling. That's because there was one point in their life they had to decide. And they decided that they were going to go and be the best at what it is. So I suppose that was what I did. And I think that's something that a lot of people might be aware that this happens, but they don't know how it works behind the scenes or what works in the head, right? Yeah. What's really the dialogue you're having with yourself in your head on a daily basis. If only it can be captured and, you know, maybe played out like a movie, it'll be such an interesting movie to watch.
Right. I'm curious because as you said, wondering what were some examples of periods where your mindset and your confidence or your determination was put to the test.
Loads of experiences, but I'll tell you one specific one, right? So I was playing for a team called Gibraltar Crescent, which is in the north of Singapore, right? I've done really well in the mini league. I was in a combined schools team, so I played in what they call the Island-wide league now for Hai Sing Park Rangers. The late Majid Arif was my coach. He got me to a level where I thought, okay, now I'm ready to play big boys football. Then this club picked me up, which was closer to my home. When I started to play for them, and they had this culture where it was, back then it was a very now you would call it toxic. Now I'm pretty sure people call it a toxic culture, right? Back then it was accepted. It was a way of life. There was football, school of hard knocks and stuff like that. But also I think what they didn't realize that they were not inspiring at all, and they didn't motivate young people to be the best. So they saw a child or a player for what he is today. Like, he can pass the ball well. He's just good today. But they didn't see the guys like me that, oh, maybe this guy has potential. They had no time for that.
Yeah.
Right? They had no time for that. So I fell into that bracket where you're nowhere. You're last in the pecking order, even though you're in the team. So stuff like, I'll give you another nice story. I don't know if it's nice, but this is a story worth telling. We were going to be playing at Jalan Besar Stadium, right? And we're waiting for the bus. And the kit man runs up to me and says, go and buy ice from the coffee shop. He says, here's a couple of dollars. So I passed my bag, my football bag, to my teammate and said, pick it up and put it in I'll go and buy the bus. I'll go and buy the ice. So I ran to the coffee shop, and as a young kid, you got to do all these, right? These days, players don't do that, but we had to do it. It was a rite of passage for us. So when I went there, the ice was not ready. So I had to wait for these guys to prepare. So it took a while. Maybe it took about 10 minutes, and I was waiting. And I picked up the ice. As I came back, the bus had already left because the team didn't want to be late for meetings. But So I didn't have cash on me. I was like carrying blocks of ice. And what do? I mean, I'm a kid, right? I'm like 18, 19, like, 18 years old, I think at the time. Like, what do I do, right? So, and I ended up taking a flagging down a taxi, telling the taxi driver my story and take me to Jalan Besar. When we get there, I'll organize. So I went there. I got to the stadium, and then obviously half the ice is already melted. You're taking in, and all the players are laughing at you. And then the kid man comes up and say, you must be the stupidest guy on earth. Like, even though it's not your own fault, then they start to hammer you. Like, they just say, just put you down, right? So you do all of that, and then you're really deflated. Something that you don't need before a game, right? You need to be in the correct frame of mind. So sitting there, I mean, even when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh man, it was tough, right? So you sit there in the corner as a player, so you don't have self-worth. And these are moments where I suppose your worth is taken away from you because you're in a peer group, right? And for guys like me that came from almost nothing, we come from a very humble background. The only thing left with you is a bit of pride, right? That's all you have left. And then when it's taken away in such a manner in a group setting, it can be quite hard. It can be quite, it can really break your spirit. But I again, like I said, I don't know how I bounced back from that, but I suppose I was very single-minded then also. I'm like, okay, this is part of life. You got to carry on with it. You got to move on. But something really amazing happened. So with that team, I was playing for the under-19s, and the national team scouts at that time came to watch me play. And I was pretty good at that level. Like 19, I was really good. Because my physical presence and stuff like that. And they actually invited me to the Singapore B team trial, right? So I'm talking about the Malaysia Cup team and the Singapore B team. The competition there, it's not like now. Like, they got 50 players who can walk into the national team anytime. So, so much so that when the letter came to the club to invite me to the team, they couldn't believe it was me. Because there was another player that had the same name, Sasikumar. Maybe you would know him. He was my teammate. He was already playing in the first team. They said, has to be him. It can't be you. But when they confirmed it was me, I went there and eventually made the team. And then went to Indonesia with the team, and then the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
But those are turning points in your life. I really felt that this, when I look back now and look at my football career, and those are pivotal moments in your life that actually completely change you. Some call it the butterfly effect, and I think it's just being in the right place, right time, being in the right mental state of mind, because you can be in the right place at the right time. But if you don't approach the task or that, what you're supposed to be doing, approach it with the right mind frame, I think A, you would have lost the opportunity. B, you would have let yourself down, right? So you're like, oh, I waited for this all my life, but now I'm here, and the opportunity is gone because my head is not right.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really interesting story, man. It's amazing the challenges that we go, like, Singaporean footballers go through, and how even though maybe the challenges change, even though the circumstances change, the challenges are still around. Like, I feel like sometimes there's not much progress there, but I guess that's a discussion for another time.
That's another topic altogether.
Yeah. Actually, what's interesting enough, I was trying to get this person as a podcast guest, but she's really busy this year. But she's the New York Yankees sports psychologist, and she actually told me something really interesting, because when we had a Zoom call, she did a study with one of those like PhD psychologists or sociologists, and they did a comprehensive study on all like American athletes from the good to the bad, and what they found was that not or even the top players never perform well under pressure or during high consequence games like finals or stuff like that. Everyone, regardless of who they are, either in those high pressure situations, perform at the same level they are capable of or below. No one outperformed anyone. And so what they said was, so when they looked at the data, what they realized was that it wasn't that your Jordans and your LeBrons or whatever were outperforming people. It's just that they were more consistent.
That's it.
Like, yeah, they learned what it took to be consistent during any type of situation, and they just did that. And for me, maybe you as an athlete probably knew that already, but for me, it was like a profound thing to learn.
No, I think, you're spot on. I think you hit the nail in the head by saying consistency is everything. Like, that's definitely something that I learned from football. And, they always say that football, you're only as good as your last game, right? So I kind of brought that into my business space where I say we're as good as our last project or the last deal you sign or the last pitch you made. So it's always ringing in the back of my head. Sometimes we get lazy, we forget about it, but that's what it is. You got to be consistent. What does consistency mean? Getting up early, doing the routine, doing the work, putting in the hours, and seeing results. Because that's consistency. If you drop some level down and you expect the same level of output, it's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. That's not the way it works, right? So I suppose when you look at a lot of the athletes that I played with, the guys that lasted long was because they had consistency. I finished playing at 29 because not that I wasn't consistent. I wasn't consistent with my motivation. My motivation was not constant. It came to a point where I was consistent with the routine, but my motivation wasn't consistent anymore because I was really looking at what's life ahead for me. So there are clear indications of those things.
Oh, that's a good point. There's consistency in many aspects. Motivation, purpose, meaning, your routine, and stuff like that. That's a good point. I'm going to remember that. But I suppose things, and this is why I wanted to have a conversation with you, is that one of the things that professional athletes struggle with is the life after retirement from that professional aspect of the game, and I'm curious from your experience and from your experience with the people you've worked with and also the people you've played with, like, why is that the case?
Nick, being a professional athlete in itself, it's a privilege, right? Because, like I said, only 1% reach to the top of the game. And after you get there, right, staying there is also quite hard, like being consistent, right? But what also happens is that you live in a bubble. You live in a bubble where professional athletes, everything is done for you, right? So from booking of flights, you turn up for training, everything's laid out for you. In some cases where, they feed you, they clothe you, everything is done for you. You pretty much live a routine, you do what you're supposed to do best, and then you go home and you pick up your wages at the end of the month. So this becomes a habit. Like anything in life, it becomes a habit. So your life is based around what? Training for 5 days, playing on the weekend. Your years are not calendar years. Your years are actually seasons, right? Going from one season to the other, off season, then going pre-season. That's how your mind starts to think. And that's what my life was for many years. People talk about holidays. People talk about Easter, Deepavali, New Year's. No, ours is in season, off season, pre-season, and that's it. Nothing else. And then so when you are trained that way for many, many, many years, and you kind of earn a decent wage more than your peers, so you kind of get into this bubble where you think that this is going to last forever. I can play one more year. I can play one more year. I can play one more year, and then next thing you know, you're 35. You're looking around like, oh my God, that's the end of the road, right?
Yeah.
So, but the ones that actually do well are the ones that actually start thinking about it when they're closing in on about 29, 30, when they need to start to renew the end of the lifespan contracts, like the last contract you're going to be signing, right? Then you start thinking. For me, it was very different because I was forced out of the game. Right? I was forced to do. And at that point in time, it was like the worst thing that can ever happen to you. The world comes to an end. You're depressed. But when I look back, it was, again, the butterfly effect. One thing that happened to me in my life that I will be so thankful for is getting my contract cancelled at Tampines Rovers when I was there. I cannot begin to tell you how important that event was in my life because it completely changed the trajectory of my career afterwards. Right. So to give you some context, I obviously played with a few of the championship winning teams. In 2001, I wanted to try my luck in Europe, so I left for Europe. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit long-winded here because I want to give you some context. I want to give you some context to this. So I went to Europe. I tried in France. I could have made it because of some complications with the agent and stuff like that. Didn't end up signing. Came back, all the other contracts were taken up. Then I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Nothing left to do. So I ended up playing part-time for Jurong FC at that time, started to build something on the side. The first thing I attempted was to build a website. And this is 2001, where it was, you're still coding HTML, and I didn't have the expertise, but I was leaning on somebody. That was my kind of first foray into life after football. And then I had a fantastic year that year, played 31 games of 33, was the captain of the team, lead them to the Singapore Cup final. Very next day, I got a contract offer from Tampines Rovers. We actually played in the Cup final and lost to. And that was the biggest contract of my life ever, right? They offered me money that I was like, wow, okay, I got to play with them, So moved there for 2 years. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way because the coach that signed me got sacked. Other guy came in, all thing went pear-shaped. And then at the end of the year, the club said, we want to get rid of you. We said, okay, and like pay me out. Simple as that. I would carry on playing. But unfortunately, this again dragged on. Then I had to stop because my contract got cancelled. I had to stop. No club picked me up. And I was really depressed for that 6 months, right? Really depressed for 6 months. Like, what am I going to do? I didn't end my career the way I wanted it. Luckily enough, Steve Darby from Home United called me and said, would you like to come and be part of the squad? At least you can finish your career the way, most pros deserve to finish. So I finished that. And at that point in time, I offered to move to Australia to work. So I was a little bit lucky because I was forced out of the game. Then I stumbled upon this opportunity, right? But I've always been thinking about what's life after football. If I'm being completely honest, my dad's always been in my ears. You got to think about next. So I actually went to school and I finished my master's in sports management. And I was hoping to land a job. I didn't want to be a coach. I knew that was quite clear. I didn't want to take the normal route. I was always been intrigued in the commercial side of sports anyway, like how to sell sponsorship, how to monetize sports, and so I've always been interested in that. But coming back to other athletes, you can quickly see that they don't have that vision, or it's not some have to be blamed for that, but a lot of us tend to live in this bubble that this day will never come, right? And when it finally comes, you're like, okay, scramble. What do I do, right? Not, I think just this week or last week rather, Delonte West, the former Dallas Mavericks point guard, he was homeless, substance abuse, and you saw the Dallas Mavericks boss, Mark Cuban, went pick him up from a gas station, put him in a rehab center. In fact, on my show, we were talking yesterday, like, should, sports leagues and clubs do a bit more for athletes in terms of transition for life after sports? You see a lot of, and for him, he earned 16 million a season, right? That's a lot of money, right? So it's not a matter of not having the money. It's about what do you do with it. Like how you make the money work for you, and then you're having good people around you. I still think that sports leagues and clubs and associations should do a bit more, especially if you look in the context of Singapore. As soon as you finish playing professional football, you're on your own the very next day. Yeah, you're on your own, right? So if you call your club, they won't want to know you. If you unless you're a national team player, I still think the FA does a little bit of helps you a little bit, pointing you in the right direction. But it's not that they're gonna save you. There's no guidance, there's no mentorship, and that's one of the things that I've been passionate with the work that I do these days, of helping athletes, especially footballers, to make that transition. Don't wait till the last moment to think about where your next dollar is going to come from. Ease into it. And that's not to say that forget about football and pay attention to other stuff you're doing, but it's always important and key to put those building blocks in place so that eventually when you get there, you're not thinking about replacing incomes overnight, because that doesn't happen. Like you can't be earning, say, 10, 15 grand one night, and then next morning you wake up and say, hey, this month there's $0 coming in, right? So that can be quite painful. And we see in many cases, right, the number of divorce, if you look at the data and stats of professional athletes, breaking up from the other half, especially as soon within a year of retiring, is very high. Because it's high, like, and then you talk about substance abuse and homelessness. I suppose we don't have that much here in Singapore, but we have also had our fair share of athletes, especially footballers, because I suppose they make the biggest bunch of professional athletes here. Going wayward it's an alarming number.
The way the world is moving towards uncertain times, frequently at least. I mean, I suppose we all have to think about, not so much athletes, even though athletes provide a good case study for it. But how do you think athletes should be thinking about their second phase of their career?
I think it's important to, first of all, think about what imagine and kind of future pace yourself to think about what life would look like after football. As much as we don't want to think about it because it's scary, and that's one of the reasons, right? The fear of the unknown. When you start thinking about it, you get panicky and you got anxiety attacks and all. Say, forget about it. We leave it till later, right? But I suppose you got to address the elephant in the room because it's going to happen. Like nobody's running away from it. It's going to happen, right? Even if you end up playing till what Kazuyo Shimura is still playing at 53, but at some point he's got to stop, right? But I suppose he made enough money to retire from football. But if you look at a normal athlete, it's going to come at some point. Then start thinking about what are the things that you are passionate about. See, 80-90% of them end up being coaches because that's what they know. They want to give back something. So they end up taking that route. So it also means that starting to skill yourself up, getting the necessary licensing, getting the necessary knowledge, and working as an understudy to more experienced coaches. So that's one route somebody else can take. But then there are also athletes now who have actually gone back to school. I know quite a few of them, they got their master's degree because they've been in school, they're working, in the sense that they're in school and finishing their master's program. So I would say that, spend time, work with an organization that actually can give you some flexibility to come in and do some stuff, right? Projects and stuff like that, because a lot of, I can only speak for footballers, there's a lot of downtime, especially you train once a day. There's a lot of downtime. Instead of just sitting at home and playing FIFA or hanging around the coffee shops, put on a pants and shirt and try and work, maybe intern, with an organization that you think that you're going to be working with long term, right? That's for people who want to go into that whole space of being employed, because entrepreneurship is not for everyone. But at the same time, I think there's a good bunch that want to be entrepreneurs, because let's not forget, as a professional athlete, you have a lot of free time. And once you get into a job, and I've seen this with some of the athletes that actually work with us, right? You ask them, you put them behind a computer and they can start sleeping afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to control your time and your freedom, then entrepreneurship is another way. So maybe partnering with people who are already there, learning and, forming business partnerships in different space, right? Should and must start while you're actually still playing, so that you learn valuable lessons, you learn and you start building something small. Income could be $1,000, $2,000 a month or even less, and then slowly building up towards a 10K, 15K eventually, right? Then when you transition from sports and you get into that, you're prepared and the road's paved and the pathway is quite clear for you to walk that path.
Yeah.
I suppose that's what they should be looking at. And like I said, that's the kind of work I do these days anyway.
Well, in that case, what would you recommend athletes, or how would you recommend they think about what would be worth their time once they hit retirement? Like, because I suppose now, even though business is hard, I mean, in terms of entrepreneurship, the opportunities to create a business in any industry, in any niche, is more possible than ever. So, I mean, this gives, I suppose, athletes or anyone more avenues to explore. So, like, do you have any ideas, I guess based on experience and the people you coach, on what's a good way to kind of understand what matches their passion and the business side of things as well?
Let me put it this way. All of us has some sort of superpower. All of us do. It's just that people don't know what we have, right? Because when you look at professional athletes, there's a lot that people can offer. I don't even think twice when we had a large agency to hire an ex-athlete or a professional athlete, because I know what they bring to the table, right? They're resilient, they're disciplined, they know how to play by the rules and stuff like that. So if they might not necessarily have the experience, as soon as I know they're athletes or they played some sort of sports at a different level, you're straight in. Because I like those kind of guys, right? There's a reason behind that. It means that you have the ability to think in structure. You have the ability to think independently. and get results. Because let's not forget athletes, you're under pressure every week. You're judged every week, right? Every week. I don't know another job that you're judged every week. Because in business or in the work we do, some of us are judged by quarter, we judged by the year and stuff like that. That's a lot of time, right? There's a lot of time to mess up and be useful again. But in sports, every week, sometimes thousands of people or even sometimes millions of people watch events and games and then start screaming at you and it can be intense. So once you have operated under that kind of pressure situation, coming to work is really nothing. Like, it's really nothing, right? So these guys have superpowers. It's just that they don't know what it is, right? So then it's to write down on a simple piece of paper and say, what am I really good at, right? What would I teach someone for free, right? I know something and I'm going to teach someone and I'm going to do it completely free. What would I do that? And what is that something that I can actually give them tangible results? So if you say an athlete, first thing that comes to my mind, I know how to get people fit because I walked that path, right? For 10, 15, 20 years, I was taught every day how to eat healthy, sleep, and train. So while you might not be a trainer, but you definitely know how to take care of yourself, that somebody else might find useful for, right? So it's about finding who this piece of information is useful for. So they should start writing all of that down and then writing who can they be a hero to? Right. So let's just take an example. Let's say I'm a swimmer. Maybe football is we use too much, right? I'm a swimmer. I'm a national level swimmer. I know how to go fast. I've broken records. I've gone to all the games. Maybe I might have gone to the Olympics. So this is my credential. This is what I do best, right? So take that and say that, okay, who can I now serve? Right? I'm pretty sure that parents with kids will love their kids be trained by an Olympian, right? For sure, right? Yeah. Okay, so now you need to package that. Like, how would you package that? Then you have to think about what's your offer, right? What is your offer? Are you just going to be another swim coach who teach condominiums? Are you going to work with only elite athletes because you're going to teach them how to reach the heights of being an Olympian? Or you're going to teach older people how to just swim? There are a lot of people who don't know how to swim. So you really need to know what are you passionate about, because some people say, okay, some swimmers might think, okay, I'm just going to go after kids who want to be an Olympian. Okay? Or some might say that actually, you know what, I'm just going to take it easy, go teach some old folks how to swim and they're going to pay me money. So this is what we call segmentation. This is what we call, who you're going to be a hero to. You can't be a hero to everyone, right? As soon as you dial down on that, okay, maybe I'll say it as an example. I want to train kids from, say, 8 to 14 on how to get to the next level, how to swim faster. Okay, that's my offer. So as soon as you do that, then now you're very narrow, you're very focused on the group that you're going to be a hero to. Now let's go and find where they hang out, because you got to put your message out there. So a lot of the times these athletes, what they do have, they kind of end up having a good following on Instagram or Twitter or even Facebook these days. I wish I had Instagram or Twitter in my playing time. I probably have quite a few more than I have now.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I always tell athletes, like, use this unpaid attention that you have. You don't have to pay for the attention because people are following you now, right? When the lights go off, you got to ask for that. You got to pay for that. But right now, people are interested in you, right? If you put out a tweet, that it might get retweeted or reposted and stuff like that. So you got to leverage that. At some point, that's going to end. Right. So if you can say that, okay, hey, by the way, I'm coming up with a new program. This is what I do. I'm teaching kids from 8 to 16 to slash 30 seconds or 30 seconds too much in swimming. 3 seconds of 3 seconds of your 100-meter swimming or whatever it is, right? Your offer is. Anybody interested? Send me a DM. So if you do this right, I'm pretty sure you're going to get 10 to 15 to maybe to 20. And if you have a big enough following, I dare say you get more than that. Then you need to start putting a price tag on what your service is worth. Some people do it for free, right? Some people say, I just want to give back. Some might say my time is worth $100, and it's quite easy to find out. Just Google quickly to see what are all the other coaches doing. You know what's the market rate, so to speak. Then you decide whether you want to be premium or you want to be lower, right? So if you're an Olympic athlete, there's no chance you're going to be lower because you're going to be higher, right? Price yourself higher. Let's just say $100 an hour. It's just an arbitrary figure. Then you tell people, hey, my first session is free. The next one is $100 a session, or you come up with a package. Say if you subscribe to my program, it's $200 or $250. I always recommend a recurring revenue, which is always good because you can then think about what's coming next.
Yeah.
You don't have this feast and famine. So you can slowly start seeing this pattern emerging, and then next thing you know, you're doing one group, you're doing two groups, the money's flowing through, and there's so many technology tools that are available today that some are free, some are paid, very little, that you can automate everything from collecting money to scheduling to all of that, right? So like you said, we live in the best era because everything, technology can do the heavy lifting. You just turn up there and train. So I have actually given you a very simple steps that how an athlete can literally get started. I'm talking about this weekend. In 7 days, they can actually get started if they want.
Yeah. And what you spoke about is also something, especially when it comes to recurring, has the potential to scale as well. So, so I guess that's something you can teach them in your capacity as a coach.
Yeah.
I'm also mindful of your time, so I just I want to ask one final question that I ask most of my guests because I think of it as a reflective question for everyone, and that is, what life lesson has taken you the longest to learn?
Another excellent question.
Yeah.
I think self-awareness, because we all think that we can do a lot more than we're actually capable of. I remember this show, I think it's in Scarface. I think the guy, what's his lead character, says, a man needs to know his limitations. So while we can be forward thinking, we can be gung-ho about a lot of things, but we all have our limitations. And chasing a false dream is equally harmful, like being lazy. Right? If you're not realistic with what you want to do, and a lot of it comes from ego. So what I've learned is that I cannot lead with ego. I cannot let my ego take center stage, right? I still make mistakes until today, even though I'm aware. We all do, right? We're just human. That's the way we are built. So I think that was one of the life lessons that I've learned over time, that, know your limitations. Don't lead with ego. Wherever you have a gap, ask for help. Work with people that walk your path or the path that you want to walk, and ask for help. And I think athletes are notoriously guilty of not asking for help because of the ego, because you need a certain level of ego to be a top athlete.
Yeah.
But I think you need to lose that as soon as the lights go off. And then I think that's
How did you do that for yourself?
It's a lot of self-reflection. I think when you're faced with a lot of setbacks in life, a lot of challenges, a lot of failures. At the start of the show, you said very successful in business, but some parts of it you probably know, but I think a lot of people don't know that I've had my equal number of failures. I was just right once.
Yeah.
I was 99% of the projects that I did, I failed. I was just right once. So, and I suppose a lot of entrepreneurs are chasing for the one time they are right. Right. So through those life lessons, you pick up quite a lot of things, and then you start reflecting, asking yourself, why am I going through all this? And why am I here? I deserve more. Look at that guy, he's not done anything with his life and stuff like that. So, when you get to that space, it's very dangerous. It's not healthy for yourself, not healthy for your mind or the people around you. So I try and practice that as much as I can. I'm super mindful about that. Simple thing as people cutting me on the road into my lane. First reaction is, and then you go, oh no, you can't do that, right? So it's being there at the moment, recognizing that you are actually going the wrong direction, quickly changing the way you think to something quickly positive, and saying that this doesn't matter given the bigger scheme of things. Somebody might be in a hurry to go to the hospital or something like that. Just taking your mind away from that. I think it's a valuable lesson I've learned in life, and I think I will continue to do that, because I don't think one can master that in this journey called life, because it's impossible. We all are peppered with different situations and circumstances in our life on a daily basis. It's just when you stop the moment, take a step back, and then see from the outside in, I think it'll make a lot of sense. And I hope I've made sense with what I've been trying to tell people in a very long-winded way.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is really a lifelong pursuit. And how, I don't know whether you want to say fortunate or unfortunate, that as the older we get and the more we master it, the less time we have to practice it. So
yeah. No, you're spot on. I think you're spot on. But it also makes a difference for me because I've got two young boys, 9 and 7. And I think it's very important that, a character of a child is shaped at a very young age. You can't leave it till when they are 12, 13, 14, then it's too late to do anything. So my wife and I are very, very mindful that, the values we give them, the thought process behind things, how they conduct themselves as human beings first, and then how they treat others as human beings is extremely important. More important for us than the A's they pick up in school and, scoring a wonderful goal on the pitch. All of that is secondary. I think it starts inside. The intrinsic motivation is very, very important. So we work very hard at it. I would say, because if we can then give them the right values from a very young age, then they will grow up as human beings, not useful for themselves, but also the society at large. I think that's important. And, there's some sort of validation because my elder son, Kian, and he's 9 years old, has just been picked to be a prefect in school. So,
oh, nice.
So you can see that, if you plant the seed properly, I think the fruits turn up well. So, like I said, it's a domino effect. Because I'm self-aware, because I'm learning, I pass it on to someone else. And this time it's easy because I've got 2 kids at home. Yeah. And they say that, charity starts at home. So you got to start doing that and leading by example. So, I think that those are the things that are priority for me these days, more than chasing a dream of building a business empire.
Yeah. And that's a great way to end it, I think, because, you gave a lot of insight on what it takes to create opportunities for yourself, but just as important is to make sure that you are contributing to society in a more positive way, I suppose. Yeah. Well, Sasi, thanks for really spending time to have a conversation with me. Before we end, I just want to give you some time to share the stuff that you're doing, both as a coach and as a radio host. Maybe you want to share what you do.
Yeah, so when it comes to my coaching, I've got 2 levels of coaching. I coach small and medium enterprises on sales, marketing, business process, and how to make money, most importantly. So for that, you can always reach out to me at either you can connect with me on Instagram and Twitter at Blade of God, or just email me at sasikumar@redcardglobal.com. You can put that on the show notes.
Yep.
But if you're a sports coach looking to start or build your sports coaching business, go to this website called www.sportsbusinessmentor.com and pick up a free, I would say, 3-step framework on how you can actually start and build a program yourself, right? A sports business program. So it's a free kind of a download. Go there, and that's how you can connect with me. And like I said, very happy to be here sharing my journey, because as a radio host on CNA 938 on the weekend, I ask all the questions. It's a nice break for once to be able to be the guest on somebody else's show. So I'm very grateful for that, and thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to learn from you today as well. So thanks so much, Sasi.
Thanks.